From the moment we begin to ask about God, we step into the greatest drama of human existence, the struggle between the finite and the infinite, the known and the mysterious. And no modern thinker explored this question more profoundly than Carl Gustav Jung. His understanding of God was neither the traditional theology of the church nor the skepticism of modern science. Jung's God lived not only in heaven but deep within the human soul. He did not ask whether God exists as a physical reality, but what the idea of God means to the human psyche. For Jung, the word God pointed to a living image within us, a psychological reality that shapes our thoughts, emotions, and destiny. God, he said, is not a hypothetical being, but an inner experience, an image of supreme meaning that arises from the depths of the unconscious. This was not disbelief, it was a transformation of belief. Jung shifted the question from, does God exist? To how does God exist within us? He saw the divine not as something distant, but as a numinous presence that moves through dreams, symbols, and synchronicities. God for Jung is a mirror, a reflection of our deepest nature and our highest potential. When he famously said, "I don't need to believe I know," he was not making a claim of arrogance, but of experience. He meant that the reality of God is something one feels, something one encounters in the most profound corners of the soul. It is not a theory, but an event. To Jung, God and the psyche are two sides of one mystery. The divine speaks through images, visions, and myths that emerge spontaneously in our inner life. This is why he called God an archetype, the archetype of wholeness, the pattern of unity that draws all things together. In his language, this archetype is known as the self, the deepest center of our being that transcends the ego. The self is the image of God within the human soul. He wrote, "The idea of God is an absolutely necessary psychological function. We cannot escape it. Even when we deny God, the image of the divine lives on, hidden in our fears, our ideals, and our longings. Every culture, every civilization carries this symbol, sometimes as light, sometimes as darkness. God, in Jung's vision, is both beyond us and within us, a mystery that demands relationship rather than mere worship. Jung dared to say that humanity and God are in dialogue. Man is the mirror which God holds up to himself, he wrote. The divine consciousness unfolds through human consciousness. In other words, as we grow, so too does our image of God evolve. God is not static, the God image changes as we change. This radical idea reaches its height in Jung's book, Answer to Job, where he argues that humanity's moral awareness challenges and deepens the divine story itself. For Jung, even God must confront his own shadow. This brings us to one of Jung's most powerful insights, the shadow of God. Just as every human being carries a shadow, the repressed, unacknowledged aspects of the self, so too the divine image contains both light and darkness. To truly know God, Jung said, we must face the divine shadow, the parts of life and reality that are painful, chaotic, and terrifying. Religion often tries to avoid this by idealizing God as pure light, but Jung warns that this avoidance turns faith into illusion. True encounter with the divine must include both creation and destruction, love and wrath, grace and judgment. Only then can God be whole, and only then can we be whole. For Jung, religion was valuable not as a system of dogma, but as a symbolic language for the human soul. Ritual, prayer, myth, these are ways the psyche communicates with the unconscious, ways of balancing the forces within us. But when religion becomes rigid, when it replaces experience with blind belief, it loses its power. Religion, he wrote, can become a defense against the experience of God. We can use faith to avoid transformation, to hide from the living mystery it represents. In contrast, the living God of Jung's vision is not safe or predictable. He is dynamic, unpredictable, and transformative. Encountering him is not about comfort, but about awakening. It shakes the foundations of the ego. It leads to what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of realizing the self. Individuation is a sacred journey, a psychological and spiritual path toward integrating every part of ourselves, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, into unity. And at the center of that unity shines the image of God. It is tremendously important, Jung said, that people should be able to accept themselves. Otherwise, the will of God cannot be lived. To reject oneself is to reject the image of God within. To accept oneself fully, honestly, and courageously is to participate in divine creation. In this way, self-knowledge is not selfishness. It is a form of worship. Jung's approach also demands humility. Because God is beyond human comprehension, all our images and theologies are symbolic. They point toward the mystery, but they are not the mystery itself. If we say God, he wrote, we give expression to an image or verbal concept that has undergone many changes. But we cannot say whether these changes affect only our image or the unspeakable itself. We must therefore hold our beliefs with reverence and openness, knowing that they are human attempts to grasp the ungraspable. What then does Jung's vision mean for us today? In a world torn between science and spirituality, between reason and faith, Jung's perspective offers a bridge. He does not ask us to abandon reason or deny science. Instead, he reminds us that science describes the outer world, while religion and myth speak to the inner one. The question of God, therefore, is not solved in laboratories or logic, but in the depths of human experience, in the quiet voice of conscience, in the terror of suffering, in the ecstasy of beauty, in the mystery of love. For those who believe, Jung's God deepens faith by grounding it in experience. For those who doubt, it offers a way to reconnect with meaning without surrendering to dogma. For everyone, it reawakens the sacred dimension of life, the sense that existence itself is alive with purpose, intelligence, and mystery. In psychological terms, Jung teaches us that the symbol of God is not an illusion to be destroyed, but a truth to be understood. The death of one image of God often prepares the birth of another. When we lose faith in the external God, we are invited to discover the inner one, the spark of the divine that guides our evolution. This is why Jung's work continues to speak powerfully in our age of disconnection. He reminds us that the spiritual crisis of modernity is, at its heart, a psychological one. We have forgotten the language of the soul. To rediscover that language is to find God again, not in the heavens, but in ourselves. God, in Jung's sense, is the symbol of ultimate meaning, the organizing principle of the psyche, the voice that calls us toward wholeness. The more we integrate, the more we see that God was never outside us to begin with. The divine is the mystery through which life itself speaks. So when Jung says God is reality itself, he is not speaking in metaphor. He is saying that the divine is woven into the very structure of being, into the cosmos, into the unconscious, into every human story. To live without awareness of that mystery is to live half awake. To open ourselves to it is to participate in something eternal. And so the question is not whether you believe in God, but whether you have met God within your own depths. Have you faced your shadow, your fears, your light? Have you listened to the silent whisper that speaks in dreams and intuition? For Jung, that is where the real religious life begins, not in doctrines, but in experience. In the end, Jung offers not a definition of God, but a path toward inner transformation, self-realization, and reverence for the mystery that holds all things together. To know God, we must dare to know ourselves. And in knowing ourselves, we may discover that we were never separate from the divine at all. Because, as Jung might remind us, the God you seek outside is the God who has been waiting within.